All right, welcome everyone. So, this is going to be a really deep dive into what this new Education Leaders organization is all about. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know it's busy. We're recording this on a Friday afternoon. So, the people that are here live and the people that are going to be watching it recorded, we're going to move pretty quickly through it. But we'll definitely leave time at the end to hang on here with any questions. And the people that are on here live, feel free chime in if you want to raise your hand to talk or put something in the chat. We'll try to do it as we're going through here, but it's such a unique experience of what this Education Leaders organization is all about, um, that we felt like the best way to do it was in a meeting like this. And the majority of the people that are on here have already applied. Um, so we'll talk about kind of what the next steps are from there, but there are some people who have not applied yet as well. So we'll talk through that. So um, as I go through the slides here, this is really what we're building as the world's only peer-to-peer network exclusively for education leaders, and it's really meant to transform the lives of you, the people who are transforming the world. I don't want to, as I go into it a little bit more, I'll first start with our introductions, but we're joined here. Jill, how are you? Glad you can join
Well, thank
us.
you. Yeah.
This is really a collaboration between a bunch of different efforts here. So Jill is currently president and principal at Notre Dame Prep here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I am also at. My name's Kevin Solar, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of K-12. And Jill and I have become friends and have talked a lot about this. And then I'm also want to introduce and pull Lee into this conversation. Lee, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for having us all here.
And Lee heads up Hesse Partners, or Sparta Hesse Partners, but is one of the lead trainers and senior partner. And we go back probably 10 years. And
At least.
when we were starting to talk about this idea, really Hesse Partners and you and your experience are key to it. So we'll hear more from Lee about how they do it, because it really is like a magic to this experience. And then the last one, Milena is not available to be on this today, but a lot of you have already had communication with her. She's the membership director for ELO. But I wanted to go right into like why this matters so much, because I'm super passionate about this, and I feel like it's honestly like the most important work that we could do. It's really addressing you as a person, the school leader, the principals, the superintendents, the ones that hold the top seat within their school and within their district. And I thought Jill, as we've had a lot of conversations, I can kind of have her talk about this, but there's a few things on here talking about why this is such an issue. This is huge turnover, a lot of stress that has been put on the plates because of COVID, but this really goes beyond COVID. So Jill, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing a little bit of kind of our conversations and why ELO is something that is really important right
Absolutely. Well, as a president and principal, we talk about COVID certainly has taken its toll this year, and the way we've had to change the way we teach and how students are learning for sure. But COVID is a problem. I think what's more specific about education as a whole is, as leaders in education, we're constantly finding ourselves battling the what's next in education and doing that alone, outside of your own realm. People don't understand the difficulty in trying to encapsulate the next steps in education, because it's going like this and we're stuck here, and not having the opportunity to really fully engage in conversation and in dialogue about, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? And as a Catholic school educator, having the opportunity to talk to other presidents across the country or other principals who are doing things, looking at the school vitality of Catholic education or private education. How do you stay relevant? How do you maintain the interest in a private institution that pays, that has tuition? So there's all kinds of things. And we know as educational leaders, our turnover rate is fast and furious because it is a big job. And having the support is critical. Having somebody there who gets it. I can go home and talk to my husband. He's like, okay, that's nice. Have another day at the office tomorrow and it'll be better. And it's yes, it will, but they don't fully understand. So having that group to be able to talk and share ideas, like I said.
Perfect. And that is kind of where we really look at this is if you just kind of look at this and kind of looking at the hero's journey, which at the end of the day, that's what you guys are. I mean, you guys are the ones that have so much impact, and not only with your staff, with your teachers, with the parents, with the students, with the community, but at the end of the day, like you are really one of the ones that makes the most impact into your community out of any role out there. I mean, literally, we all know those principals and those superintendents that when they are great, it changes everything, literally all the way down to like the value of your home if you live in an area that's impacted either positively or negatively. And so when we really look at kind of that journey is that we know that there's a problem is that you need to have a safe outlet to be able to really become the leader that you want. And that's really where ELO is about. We're going to lay out kind of this plan today and these outlets for you to be able to become the best leader. And at the end, we'll call you to action. I know many of you have already applied, but if you've not already applied, because at the end of the day, we want this end as a success for you, but also for your schools, for your communities, to be able to have pride in everything that they're going through that. So, and then the last thing is we don't want this to avoid in failure. And we talked about kind of like the most basic failure of like turnover, but there is so much more to this. We don't want the stress that's going to happen to your life, the relationships, to see if things end in divorce or, depressions or, even worse, different types of addictions. We know that high performing leaders like this, that's there's a higher percentage that happens, and we all know those cases, and that's really what we're trying to avoid here too. And Jill, did you want to chime in on something else here too?
Yeah, I think, I've met a lot of educators across the country that live and die their vocation as educational leaders, and to the point of illness, like you said, because the stress level is just so high. Um, and the importance of our role on the future of our world, it weighs on our shoulders, and it's an opportunity. Again, this between you and I, Kevin, in our dialogue, this opportunity to share likeness stories and ideas and feel that support, and not feel like I have no one to talk to about this, because these critical issues and problems take a toll daily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and again, panelists, feel free to chime in here, but I really wanted to bring in Lee into this discussion here because at the core of what ELO is about is it's based on other industry groups that have been around for 30 plus years and with a long history of success. But really at the core of it, it's this power of experience sharing, peer experience sharing. And Lee, I don't want to steal any of your thunder. I'll just kind of let you talk about the magic that you do and as far as training and making sure that these groups work the way they do.
It's Kevin, thanks. It's absolutely so important that we get this stuff right, because Jill, maybe ratify the statement here. Am I correct in assuming that, as that educator, as that head of the school there, that leader, do you stop this conversation when you go home, or at the end of the last bell at whatever time that is, 3:30 in the afternoon? Like, do you stop thinking about the school until that first bell rings at 7:59 in the morning?
Absolutely not. And I dream about it some days, nightmares maybe, but no, there is no end to our job. There's no 8 to 5 ever. Yeah, it's overwhelming. And like I said, I'm an outside processor, and to try and explain this at home to my husband, who is significant, is he just doesn't get it. And he just doesn't understand the critical decisions you make. And more importantly, as the head of the school, the revolving door and the constant switching your mind, and there's a student in front of you, there's a parent in front of you, now you're going to a construction meeting, and now it's a lot, and having that shared experience is so important.
it's a huge role for absolutely anybody. And being this hits very close to me. And Kevin and I talked about this a little bit in setting this up. I'm the son of a lifelong educator. My mom was a doctor of English, and even went so far as to be full circle. She taught at every level, from elementary school through high school, and got her PhD while still working, still educating, and even taught the next round of teachers, how to be teachers, and ran their student teaching program for many years across multiple different states and everything. So like, I get it. My grandfather, also an educator, like I totally understand it, and understand the toll that it takes, and seeing this firsthand for years and years and years and years, all growing up too. Having that group of peers that are in that same situation, that have been there, that have done that can empathize with you at times when you need empathy, that can brainstorm with you at times that you need new ideas. And I mean, for some of the stuff, we don't need to recreate the wheel.
No.
We've got this. Somebody else that's in your industry, that it's not a geographic competitor to you. You're never going to be fighting over the same students. No, I need you at my school. No, you can't have it. They go to Notre Dame, and right, like that's not what this is. What we can do is get together with a group of like-minded people, sit down in the room and have real conversations. Here's what's truly going on for me. And we do that across all aspects, not just here's what's going on for me at school. Here's the face that I have to wear and be perfect and know what the next right answer is. It happens across that relationships at home, and other key relationships in your life. And it can be even to you personally. So that's the power of our peer network, is that we can get together and talk about all these conversations that truly matter. That's the biggest thing. It's all the stuff that we just, my goodness, this is what I really wanted to say, but I can't say it, or I don't know what the right answer is. And having the ability to say that to a group of peers that understands exactly what you're going through, has been there, has walked in your shoes, and to have the answer not be, well, you know what you've got to do over here is this. The answer is, go on, tell me more. That's the opportunity that we have together.
It's an amazing opportunity, because again, that not trying to fix the model, just let me tell you my experience. Maybe it'll help, or it won't, or tell me more about yours.
Absolutely. We can learn from each other. We can grow with each other all at the same time, because we're all in this together. And it's just so much easier when I've got that support system, a group of people that has my back no matter what, doesn't really have a vested interest in whether this goes well or badly for me. So why not make it go well? Let's make sure that we can take care of each other and be the support network that we know that we so drastically need all the time.
Yeah. And I'll talk through kind of just like some of the basics of what this is for people who have not gone through this before. But at the core of what ELO is all about is that we're going to be putting together groups that are called quorums. And these are really kind of your trusted, your confidential group of peers that you're going to be in. And we aim for 8, but it's really kind of 8 plus or minus 2. So the groups can be, 6 to 10, but really 8 is kind of the optimal. And what you'll do first is when you get in there is you're going to go through a training that is based on protocols that talks about this experience sharing mindset that allows these groups to work in the right way. And I know in the future there may be a chance that we can do these more face to face, but in the times we're in right now, these will be Zoom meetings. They're going to be roughly 3 to 4 hours. So there is a time commitment to block off to it. But I can guarantee you, as somebody who's been part of these groups for about 10 years now, it is the most impactful time of my month. And anyone who says that I can't do that, I can't block off 3 to 4 hours a month, my experience has always been is those are probably the people that need this the most.
Indeed.
It really is. It's the ones that you can, because this is your time for the month that where it is about you. It's about looking at kind of your life in a 360-degree view to be able to express these things that you're struggling with, and the phrase is always out there is like, this is for the top 5 and bottom 5% of your life. That middle 90%, for, trying to figure out like how to carpool kids or how to, like those daily issues or whatever it is that, that's on your plate. You probably have other outlets for that, but it's really hard to get to the outlets that you can talk about these really core issues that you can't talk to your spouse with, you can't talk to your staff about, you can't talk to your friend that you ran to the grocery store, because your decisions impact their lives. So that's really kind of the core of it. Lee, would you mind kind of going through example of why experience sharing works versus kind of what we're trained on from, from normal life of more advice giving?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Kevin. I feel like this, and it's an often asked one, but that's what I'm here for, to be in this group so I can get your advice. Tell me what to do. And the reality is, we already know what the right answer is. It's just kind of locked inside of us. So by hearing somebody else's experience share instead of them giving us advice, well, then it allows me to unlock that answer for myself, and really kind of take that buy-in. Anytime I get advice, and even if this is asked for, anytime I get advice, I get into defensive mode. I pick up my sword, my shield, I get ready to do a little battle, right? So even if I said, Kevin, what do you think of my shirt right now? Like, do you like my shirt? If Kevin says yes or no, there's judgment that goes along in there. And so he's now picked a side, and he's solely on that side. Kevin, what do you think? Do you like my shirt or not? He's staying on mute.
See, even my not answering, my mannerisms,
Yeah.
just
Right?
even my mannerisms, you're going to
We
read
know
into
what you
that,
do.
right?
Yeah, he's like, that's a terrible shirt, Lee. It doesn't fit you well. It's not the right thing, right? Like, it doesn't go with our colors for any of the, right? Like, all those things could be flying through Kevin's head. What he would then say to us in terms of experience share, instead of me asking, hey, do you like my shirt? I would say, hey, I'm not feeling very confident about my clothing choices lately, and I feel like I probably need to make a change. And Kevin would be able to share a little something that goes back into, here's the time when I made a change. And it's not necessarily about just shirt color or size or any of that sort of stuff. He'd be able to share about a time when he was facing a change, whether that's a positive or a negative thing, and share his experience around that. For me, I'm left to go, I wonder what I can draw from Kevin's experience, and not just Kevin. I get everybody else that's in the room, Kevin plus or minus 8 of his closest friends, to say, here's what I could take out of that from me. The great thing is that everybody learns in that scenario. It's not just the person who's asking a question. Everybody gets that opportunity to learn when we share things in experience mode. Once we do that too, it's very sacred that we keep this space and only for experiences rather than give advice. And I know that might sound still a little bit funny, a little bit silly coming out of, saying like, I feel like that's what I would go to is this advice mode. But the experience side is so much stronger of a learning opportunity for me. And so that's what I'm here for. I can get advice from anybody else on the street. I can go to the person that gives us coffee in the morning. I can go to anybody, my parents, my mom would be a great. She's an expert in the field, for example. And yet it still would be a really tough place to even draw and gather from that advice. But when my mom shares a story with me and tells me about how she handled a tough situation, where it looked at where she was looking at making a big change, I can draw from that what I want to. And that's the magic behind the peer-to-peer network.
Exactly. And just to kind of give other examples of this, of being able to speak from experience versus advice giving, it's a principle that really goes everywhere. So I always use this example of like, one of my brothers was going through a divorce, and I kept telling him over and over, I'm like, get an attorney, get an attorney, get an attorney. But he didn't want to harm that relationship with his ex-wife, and they wanted to keep it mutual. And, I just kept going at it with him of like, get an attorney. And I was just giving him this advice. And I was getting frustrated because he wasn't taking my advice. He was getting frustrated because it was hurting our relationship of like me doing that. So I finally I'm like, well, wait, what have I learned from being part of these groups? And I said, you know what? I haven't been through a divorce before, but I did go through a breakup with a business partner where I ended up buying out a business partner. And I just shared my experience of that. The irony on that, I did not use an attorney on that. But my experience at the end of that was that, man, I I ended up having a lot of resentment at the end because I didn't do the things to protect myself. And I just shared that experience with him, and that immediately just changed the interaction. To this day, I have no idea if he hired an attorney or not. But the point is, like, I don't care. at that point. It's up to him to receive kind of that experience however he wants. And and it just is a way to allow people to make the decisions for themselves and not do it in a judgmental way.
And Kevin, what was that like for you? How did that feel when you were giving him that advice that he wasn't taking?
Oh, it's frustrating. I mean, it's like, come on, I already told you what to do. I already solved your problem. Why didn't you let me solve that problem for you?
And it's so tough because we pick that side of the fence. We're like, this is it. And I'm gonna stand my ground, and you should hire an attorney, and I know what's right for you. Oh, but do I really?
Yeah.
Do I know what's right for you? No, because the conditions that got you to where you are today are totally different than the conditions that got me to where I am today. And what you're seeing on the landscape of what's moving forward is different than what I see on the landscape of what's to move forward for me. And so I never know what's right for you. And by using advice, I'm saying consciously or subconsciously, I'm saying I know what's right for you. And I don't.
Yeah. So let me just kind of talk through, and I'll give a few examples of other people that have been in these peer groups, and what they say about it. It's because being part of a peer group has made me a better spouse, boss, and citizen. Learning how to speak from experience versus advice giving has transformed my ability to relate to others. There's another one. There is always talk about professional development, but personal development is what I really needed. Having a peer group to learn from their experiences is invaluable to me becoming the leader I want to be. And the relationships I've created go beyond the normal interactions of everyday life. Having a group of trusted peers allows me to discuss deep issues within my life that has made me a better person, leader, spouse, and parent. And those are the types of things that as we go through this, each meeting is different. It's like we said, these are end up being peer-led groups. So the discussions could be, things would be like, I'm struggling with where to, like who to have our payroll company to, what do I do with this parent that can, that keeps making comments on social media. The variety of happens in these meetings are really up to the groups, and we always say we're really trying to stay on that top 5 and bottom 5%. So, for the sake of time here and kind of moving things along, what we're doing here is, and I know many of you have already applied, and really we are looking at right now is just kind of completing enrollment here in February. So the ones that have applied and have met the requirements, because really the requirements are that you hold the top position at your school or at your district. Those are the requirements. If you do that and you've filled out the application, we'll go through kind of the next steps just to get the commitment and to do that, because once we know here in February of who's enrolled, we're going to start placing them into groups, and then we're going to start scheduling the training sessions in March. And Lee and his partners are the ones that are going to be leading the training session in March. And the training it's going to be about a 4-hour commitment via Zoom, to really go through the protocols of this, because it is difficult. It's to be able to really change that mindset, and go through kind of this. It's not a strict agenda, but it's a pretty good structure, that's been proven to work. So that's what that training is going to be in March, and then we'll start rolling out the groups, and again, those groups of roughly 8 people, are the quorums, and you'll start meeting them in April. We'll have you won't be off on your own right at the beginning. Lee or someone from his company will be in there to help guide it and kind of keep things going. But the idea is to get this for ongoing, and that these are completely member-led meetings. That's the way to keep the cost down low. It's also the best way to really build the bond between the group, because the whole idea of having peer groups is you want everyone in the room to be in similar positions. And that's one last point too in there is, I know we keep saying this is for superintendents, principals, heads of schools. It's really, we want to make sure that everyone's in the right track. So we are going to have superintendents in a separate track as the principals and the heads of schools. So if you're in charge of one school versus in charge of multiple schools, that's really how we're going to differentiate and make sure that we put people in the right group, because again, there's just different pressures and different types of stresses and different types of scenarios, and that's how we're going to do that. So feel free to chime in with any questions on here. Lee, Jill, anything else you want to add as far as kind of the next steps here before I get to the next couple things here, wrapping it up?
I
Go for it,
Go
Jill.
ahead. Oh, yeah? Okay. I would just say, until I went through the training, I was a little unsure about what this fully looks like. But once you go through the training, you fully understand the benefit of what you're getting. These two have been at it for over 10 years. And being new to this kind of training and the idea of what's behind it, it's incredible the richness that it holds. And so if you're not fully sure what you're getting into, trust the process, that the training will really clarify the importance of the groups and how they function.
And that training is going to be a very experiential thing. So it's not just going to be a lecture at you for 4 hours about here's what's going to happen. No, you get to do this all real time. So you're trying it out. You're playing with it. You're making sure that you have a good, firm understanding of it before we even get you into the group and placed. And once that group is placed, we're here to keep you on the right path here. So we've got ways to help keep each group, each quorum on the straight and narrow, and it's going to be a great experience. So make sure that it's going to be a good value for you, yourself, for the communities that you serve as well. So I can guarantee that ROI that you're talking about there is going to be massive, not just in your own life, but the ones for those in which people you care about are as well.
Perfect. So that's really just kind of as we wrap up here is just, this is a point where I'm gonna challenge you to take an action. If you feel like you need an outlet like this, and my personal opinion is that everyone does. If you're in this role, you need an outlet somewhere. Maybe it's not ELO, but hopefully you have that outlet somewhere else. And really that's kind of where Lee and his group are the guides that are going to give you the plan. But this is where I'm just going to call it to action. I look at kind of almost every major decision that I've made over the last 10 years of my life, and my peer group has had a huge fingerprint on all of those decisions. We want you to be successful not only in your job but in your life, and really avoid that failure, of that burnout, of the stress that could happen. Divorce, or any kind of family relationships, issues with friends, and all those other bad things of depression and addiction and things that we know that can happen if you don't have a good outlet for this. So at this point, I mean, we'll definitely hang on for like any questions. If anyone wants to raise their hand and ask any specifics, or in the chat, or raise their hand. But I'll just kind of open it up to Q&A here and just kind of put more quotes of other people, because like I said, there's nothing that I've found that is more powerful than this type. And I've always said, there's been times in my life where I definitely needed therapy, and I didn't go to therapy because I had a group like this to be able to think through and be able to work through problems in my life.
And if you have been part of a principal or superintendent group in the past, this is that times 10. I think, the never do you get the social emotional on top of the professional. And this is exactly that. It's the social emotional as well as the professional. And then it's priceless. But I really hope that fellow educators out there join me in this opportunity.